What do you say, everybody, and welcome to the BamaInsider YouTube channel on a Sunday night. We're going to take your calls. We're going to talk Alabama sports. The Crimson Tide won the SEC. That was, look, they won the SEC a lot, right? But they won it in basketball. First time since 2002 that the Crimson Tide won the SEC. Roll Tide to all you guys that are watching tonight. Jersey Dolphins is here. See Bama, all you guys. I want to hear from you. The phone lines are going to be open. I'm going to take your calls, 205-850-0883. I want to know what you thought about the game. Alabama didn't play a great game against Mississippi State, but they won. And I think that really goes to show what this team's all about with Nate Oats, who's been just a tremendous asset to the Crimson Tide as head coach of the basketball team, where this program's going, what they've been through in the past. I mean, going back to 2002, I've talked about it before. I was courtside. I mean, I'm not even going to be able to tell this story much because now there's a new SEC champ basketball, but I was a student and we were courtside, and then I ran out when Petway laid it up and Bama won. It was the guy that started the mob of students out there to celebrate, which is, I guess, against the rules now. But I didn't think that it was going to take this long for Alabama to win the SEC again, but they certainly have. And it really is kind of a big deal. It's very cool to see Alabama as SEC champs. Another thing that we could get into tonight as we take your calls is this Alabama recruiting class, not 2021, the top class, but 2022. I mean, that's pretty crazy that we're already getting into the 2022 recruiting class, but we are. And Alabama with Ty Simpson, who I was surprised. People were, I was hearing that he was going to go to Clemson. And, and that it would be Clemson that got the services of this star quarterback, one of the best in the country. But, credit Alabama, credit, of course, this coaching staff, which you always give Nick Saban a lot of credit. I mean, Nick Saban deserves it. I mean, he's the guy behind it. But when you throw in there Bill O'Brien and Doug Marrone, two guys who were head coaches in the NFL, if you're a quarterback and you want to develop, why wouldn't you want to come to Alabama? Why wouldn't you want to come and play football for Nick Saban? Why wouldn't you? And so, that's kind of, the gist of things right now, the way things are rolling. It's been just really an amazing run for Alabama. Nick Saban and his coaching staff have figured out the best way to take advantage of a tough situation where you're not getting the in-home visits and, you're dealing with a lot of things that are outside of the norm when it comes to recruiting. And I got to give our guy Andrew Bone a lot of credit too. He kept telling me that he thought that Ty Simpson was coming to Alabama. And, he was right on the money again. 205-850-0883. I'm Mick Gillispie. Again, great to talk to you tonight here on the BamaInsider YouTube channel. 50,000 subscribers. You guys are the best. Thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already. Be part of the team, whether you're an Alabama fan or you just like college sports and it's a Sunday night and you're looking for something to do. We're on here. We try to do a different show every day, part of our Bama Factor coverage. And tonight is your chance to call in and be part of the conversation moving forward. I want to know what you thought about basketball winning. I don't know. Convince me that I don't have anything to worry about, because I'm a little concerned that we're, I don't know. Like I have a lot of love for this team. I love the way that they play the game. They, they do things the right way. But I'm thinking like, is this team, are they good enough to, are they good enough to overcome some of the teams that they're going to play in the tournament? I kind of feel like the SEC is just not that good. And I might be wrong. I mean, look, we don't have Duke. We don't have North Carolina. We don't have, some of these other blue blood programs as top notch this year. But I'm really worried about Alabama, the rebounding sometimes. C. Roll says, hey, maybe we've got a concern with the guard play at times. I don't know. But what I will say is that it's definitely something that I look at with this Crimson Tide team and say they've won this SEC based off of their ability to hustle, to get on the court, like this workman mentality that Nate Oats has brought. It's obviously paid off. He's done a great job of convincing these guys that they can be champs, and they are. First time since like 75 that football and basketball are champions for Alabama in the same year. It's like the first time in 13 years that the same SEC school won the SEC in football and basketball. Florida won the national championship the years they did it. Alabama would love to see them do the same thing. But outside of the conference, they've been, very mediocre, 5-4 record. It hasn't been easy lately. This team has, done the things that you want them to do because they figure out a way to win. They're very senior-laden. And I think that in a year like this with COVID and all the distractions that you've had and the lack of practice and social distancing and everything else, having guys, like Petty who have been around the block and bring this hard leadership, hard mentality. And I mean, like, hey, we're going to do it the hard way. We're going to do it the right way. And I love this team for that aspect. But when I look at this team, and I want you guys to tell me why I'm wrong. I'm looking for that player that's going to, the star player, who wants the shot in the big situation? Who's the guy that's going to take the shot with the game on the line? And when I look at this team, I'm just a little concerned that they don't have that right now. Is it Herb Jones? Maybe it is. I mean, he could be the SEC player of the year, and maybe he's that guy, and I'm just not seeing it. I mean, I think he's a really good player, but I don't get the feeling that when the game's on the line, the ball's going to him. And then I've had other people say, well, what about some of the other players on the team? Maybe you give it to Petty, maybe you give it to or whatever. And it's like, I feel like, okay, I mean, like there's some guys, I don't know, but I just don't see that star go-to guy. I see a lot of really hard-working players that aren't afraid to dive for the ball, that aren't afraid to get to go out there and get bumped and bruised and take fouls. And that's why I love this team. And look, Alabama hasn't won an SEC championship in a long time, and they knew that Nate Oats was going to be sought after because, it's been since Mark Godfrey did it as head coach. I mean, and think about that. It's been a long time since Godfrey's been head coach. In the last few years of his coaching tenure, a lot of people felt like he was distracted and he wasn't focused on basketball, and the team wasn't as good, and then you go through all these other coaches. You got to give some of the credit to Avery Johnson. I mean, like, how many of these guys did he bring in? And it wasn't like he left in disgrace. It wasn't like he did anything besides inconsistent play, but he brought recruiting. I feel like he's the guy that brought the recruiting back to Alabama. And then here comes Nate Oats, and Nate Oats was just like the perfect guy to be the next guy. But you got to give Avery credit as well for bringing in some of these very good players and helping Alabama get over the hump as far as winning the SEC. And it was a tough win last night at Mississippi State. They didn't shoot the ball well. No one really played that well. But what they did is what Nate Oats has kind of tried to tell these guys the entire time. And that's, hey, look, if you go out there and play good defense and hustle and get the loose balls and fight for the rebounds, then you can win even when you're not playing your best. And I see that in other sports as well. Baseball can be a game like that. Football can be a game like that too. It's all about doing the fundamentals. And this team's going to score a lot of points on certain nights. I mean, they scored 115 on Georgia. But I don't know. Let me get to some of your questions. And I would love for you to call in and talk to me about these at 205-850-0883. So until the phone rings, I'm gonna just kind of pull up one here. It's from William. He says, Mick, you're whack. William, that's not the first time I've been told that before, but he's talking about JQ, Herb, Petty, Rojas, Reese, Primo. Look, I get it. You think that that any one of these guys can be the guy, right? But what I'm saying is this, William, when we've gotten into these games that have been close, Oklahoma, Stanford, Clemson, when you need that big shot, when they came all the way back against Missouri, when in that game they were down 22 and they almost pulled back an incredible win. I didn't see the guy that was ready to step up and make the clutch shot. I didn't see the guy that was like the young North Carolina Michael Jordan. Not to compare anybody to Michael Jordan, I was talking to we had a call from DC last I guess it was last week. We were talking about Juan Dixon, the year that the Terps won the championship. I mean, just the guy. He was the guy. Give me the ball. And it was like all the other guys on this team were really good, but you got to have that player, in my opinion, that just is the give me the ball guy. And right now, I want you to tell me who that guy is. That's not a committee job to me. That's a job where you give it to the guy and you're like, hey man, this is the guy. All right, let me go to the phone lines and talk to you. Look, I'm so proud of Alabama basketball. Don't get me wrong. But as we talk about that, or we could talk Alabama football as well, that's my concern going into the SEC tournament, but as SEC champs. So as the lines are open at 205-850-0883, it's a Sunday night on the Bama Insider YouTube channel. Who's this and where are you calling from?
This is Daryl from Huntsville.
Hey, what's up, Daryl? How you doing, man?
Another great day.
Great to be from Alabama, isn't it?
It sure is. I'm concerned, though, myself. I'm a long-time Alabama basketball fan and football fan, and I understand the coach's philosophy, but I still don't agree with it. It just sits wrong with me that you can't take a 8-foot shot if you're wide open. You only got to take layups, free throws, or threes. That just doesn't. I mean, if you got an 8-foot shot and you go kick the ball back to somebody 27 feet, I've watched sport and played sports long enough to know the further you shoot from the goal, the lower your percentage is.
Right.
So unless you're hot that night, guess what's going to happen? You're going to get beat. And also the fact that Alabama doesn't seem to have any rim protection. They play good defense. They play sound defense, but they don't have any rim protection, and they don't have anybody that can finish at the rim consistently.
Right. A lot of missed layups, even in last night's game, where they make great moves to get to the basket and just don't finish.
Yeah. We in my neighborhood we call that all show and no money, because that's exactly what it looks good.
Yeah.
And the crowd oohs and ahs, but the ball doesn't go in.
Right.
I saw Petty the other night against Arkansas. He just got frustrated. They D'd him up on the perimeter, and they kept him from getting the shot off like he normally does. And when he had to drive to the hoop, he virtually had to try to invent a way to score. He just couldn't score. So that concerns me. Because in my opinion, they don't really have that guy.
That's what I just said. You kind of feel the same way I do. Like there's a lot of good pieces, and they play the game. I like the way that they hustle. I like the fact that they don't give up on a play, and they're tough. But when I look at it, me personally, I'm going, okay, who's that guy? Who's the guy? And maybe I'm wrong. I mean, these guys just went 14-1 in the SEC. So 14-2 in the SEC. I mean, which is just brilliant, But at the same time, I'm kind of wondering to myself, is it Petty? Is it Jones? I mean, who's the guy? Quinterly? Quinterly had a good game, but
they don't have it.
Right.
We just have to be honest. They don't have that guy because, again, they have shown. I listened to the announcer the other night watching the Arkansas game, and Bruner hit 3 straight threes, and the announcer said, well, the scouting report says this. If Reese, Rojas, and Bruner start his 3, let them shoot it. They'll start missing. Don't worry about it. And guess what happened?
Right.
That's exactly what happened. They ended up getting blown out by Arkansas. And Arkansas is a good team, but they're not an elite team. And there's got to be somebody when it comes right down to it, either you can draw two people to you, or either you can make the shot and make the play to help your team to win. They do not have that guy.
Well, they need Bruner to just keep getting healthier and healthier. I mean, and having these.
He's still whacked up.
Right. And I
there's
mean,
no doubt about it. He's limping and hopping, and
right.
He really probably shouldn't even be out there.
Right. But you know what, though? I mean, you got to this team. I'm so confused by what I see. You know, like I look at this team and the way that I judge basketball. And I mean, I grew up watching a lot of college basketball. And I remember the great Georgetown teams and the Maryland teams and North Carolina and Duke and Kentucky. And I always look at how the teams play against really good competition on the road. Just to try to get a gauge of what we might get in the tournament, you know? And I look at this Alabama team and I'm like, okay, you know what? They don't play bad on the road against good teams, but they haven't really won those games. They've gotten close. And it's like when you need that big shot in these tough environments, they haven't had it. Now, the good news is that, look, you in these tournaments, it's not like you're going to Oklahoma. You're not playing, you know, at Missouri or at Arkansas. I mean, you're playing in a neutral gym, right? So we have a chance to
sometimes.
Right, sometimes, depending on where it is. But I think that
but with the COVID, it'll be more of a neutral.
Right.
Because, you know, normally I can remember a few years back, as Wimp Sanderson said, when Alabama played North Carolina, Alabama was absolutely loaded, and it took a great game by his name escapes me right now, from North Carolina. They shut down Worthy, they shut down Jordan. But Wimp Sanders said we was in the 1-1 when we stepped off the bus.
Right.
Because they were playing it was supposed to be a neutral site, but it's in North Carolina.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, look, and there's a lot of people who, you go back to that Arkansas game. My buddy Brick in here, we talk basketball all the time, and he's like, Mick, man, you're missing out on all the free throws that Arkansas shot and Alabama didn't shoot. And I said, look, I get it. I mean, like, the referees can cost you a game. Like, and I'm not saying that they can't.
Oh, that's true.
Because
there's no doubt about it.
Yeah, right. I mean, and for whatever reason, there could be a lot of, for whatever reasons, bias, they don't like something, they see something, the guy's calling a game a certain way. I don't care what it is, they can cost you a game. That's not what concerned me about that Alabama game. It's the inconsistency in the shooting. That's what bothers me. And it's like I'm trying to figure out, okay, is this team, when I'm filling out my bracket, and thank goodness we're going to be able to put Alabama on the bracket, because that makes March Madness way more exciting for me. But I'm saying, hey, this team might be a 2 that loses to a 15. Then again, they may make it to the Final Four. It just depends on where that shooting is.
All of it, I agree with everything you said. You're right on the dot. The thing is going to depend for Alabama is they have to make those shots that they have. If they don't make shots, of course that's any basketball. But see, they depend on threes. They eliminate the 10 to 8 foot shot that's open. They're not going to take that.
Right.
So they got to make threes. If they make threes, they'll win. If they don't make threes, they're going to lose.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, when
it's that simple.
I look at it like this too. Petty to me is the most important guy on the team. And I think, you know, Herb's probably going to win the SEC Player of the Year. If he doesn't, he's going to come close. But when when he hits his shots, everything else just seems to flow from there. You know, you look at the games like against that visit down to LSU when he's hitting all the threes. He hits the threes. Mm-hmm. You know, he's kind of like not basketball style wise, but just the way that he shows up and kind of leads the team by example. He reminds me of some of the guys that we saw in 2002, you know, like, you know, and I'm going through and thinking about the last time Alabama won anything, you know, and it was kind of a group like this, a lot of older guys, you know, they've been there and kind of, you know, Irwin Dudley, you know, like, hey, look, Irwin played a lot of years over in Turkey and stuff, but he never had a problem on the court. He was a great leader off the court, just kind of did things the right way, hung around, played hard, you know. And this group, it's funny that they won the SEC because it kind of reminds me, Antoine Petway is, you talk about the guy, you put your picture up. Hey, look, everybody in here, I don't know about your basketball skills, but if you can bring the same attitude that this guy brought to the program every single day, you're going to be successful. Not just out on the basketball court, but you're going to be successful in life. You remember him in those red shoes? He had to have those red shoes on. And
I just saw highlight him today hitting the game-winning layup against Florida.
I was there, man. I mean, but it was like if you're the guy that wears the red shoes and you're like Pete Rose, like in baseball, you're going to hustle all the time. You got to do it all the time, because the minute that you stop doing it, then all of a sudden you're just the guy in the red shoes. Then the minute
we got to get to the point. Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying, like, I love that about this team. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm sitting over here and with you, and we're kind of agreeing on the things we don't like.
See, you brought up Pete Rose. I'm a baseball fan. I'm a Cardinal fan, but I love watching the Big Red Machine, Pete Rose, and those guys. And Pete Rose always said something that I stick to today. He said, "You got to have a guy that the fans boo, but that booing is a sign of respect."
Yeah.
And Alabama doesn't have one of those guys. Now Petty's close, but again, Petty is limited. I've known him since he was 3 years old.
Yeah.
I know his father. His father played semi-pro basketball together. I know his father real well. And but he can't. His father was a legendary shooter. If I told you, I know you don't believe this, but this is true. His father once made 23 in a row.
Whoa!
I was there. That's the type of I was there. People think you must have been drunk. No, I was on the court that night when he did it.
Yeah. And
so that's the type of heritage he come from. But he has to me, he has to learn how to draw fouls. When you get to the hoop, after they start coming out and take away the three, and you put the ball on the floor, learn how to draw fouls. Don't avoid contact. You get the contact, get to the free throw line, and it's going to be vital for Alabama, if they're not shooting well, to get to the free throw line.
Right, and make those free throws too.
And make them.
Yeah, and that's what they did. Look, that's what won them the game last night. I mean,
exactly.
They made the free throws. You know, I mean, like fundamentally, they were good. How cool was it? Did you see any of the video? I wasn't sure. I didn't talk to Kyle today. I wasn't sure if I could play it on here or not. There's like with YouTube, you have different restrictions and stuff.
Oh, the video where they came in on came back to
God, that was awesome.
The camp.
Yeah, I love that. I just love that.
I saw that.
I was watching that and I'm thinking, you know, like it really is special. And the way that this year's gone and everything else, you know, these guys won the SEC. To see all those fans show up and support them, I love that, man. And they deserve it.
That's what it's all about. You know, a lot of times people look at the wrong way to look at fans as fanatics. And there are some crazy fans. We understand that. But genuine enthusiasm and genuine love for the school that you support is nothing better than that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm with you. I'm with you on that. I'm just, you know, going into these last few games before we get into the SEC tournament. What do you think we're going to see from Alabama? I mean, do you rest guys? Do you get guys healthy? You know, do you work Bruner a little bit more? Or do you just go back at it the way that you think they always do?
I think what you do is you go into a training camp mentality starting right now. You run your basic drills in practice, your 2-on-1s, your 3-on-1 fast break drills. You run your layup drills, because every basket is going to be paramount to winning or losing the game. Every loose ball, every charge. So what you do is you go into like a fall camp mentality like football, and you go and you say, you know what, we're going to play just like we need to have every game, because we really do.
Right.
Because if we go with the mentality where we're going to rest people and everybody, now we get lackadaisical and maybe we can just turn on the switch. There is no switch. You got to be sharp from the get-go. When you step out there, you're the SEC champions. They're coming for you. Kentucky, Florida, they've had down years, but trust me, they still have pride of being Kentucky. They still have pride of being Florida. So Alabama can't go in there and say, well, you know what, Kentucky's just gonna lay down because this is a bad. No, you can't do that. You gotta have that. You gotta have that mentality. You know what the Romans always said this: in times of peace, prepare for war.
Right.
So before we get to March 10th, it's times of peace, but we preparing for war.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. I mean, and I'm just, like I see on the message board and there's people that agree with us. There's people that disagree with us. Maybe Herb Jones is that guy. Look, I hope Herb Jones is that guy. But with the games I'm watching, I'm just not seeing him as like, look, when there's like a second left, he's got the ball and that no one can stop him or he's going to make that shot,
No, that's terror time.
Yeah.
Because the fact that he's playing point guard tells you something about the team. The only reason he's playing point guard is he's reliable.
Right.
And Alabama does have the penchant at times to turn the ball over in flurries. They'll make 3-4 turnovers in a row. After they score a couple of baskets, they get careless with the ball, careless passes. And again, you got to understand the one thing, I don't agree with nothing Skip Bayless said, but he said something a long time ago that I do agree with. He says the NCAA is the biggest crapshoot because the referees can and will take you out of a game with foul trouble on a certain player or bad call, and that is true.
Yeah.
Now, that I agree with.
Yeah, he's right. He's right. I mean, like, there was that. Do you remember that NBA had that referee that got kicked out for like he was gambling? I forget the guy's name, but I know who you're talking about. I know exactly who you're talking about. And he didn't like Allen Iverson. And you look at the games where Allen Iverson was in his games, and it was like, I mean, Allen Iverson just couldn't catch a break. Like he looked at somebody and got a foul,
Yeah.
And it affected
and there
the
are
team in the
referees.
games.
There are referees that sometimes don't realize nobody paid to see you.
Right.
There's no such thing as let them play. To me, is call the game.
Yeah.
Now, again, the good referees call the game according to they understand who's playing. Okay, let's say if you got North Carolina's got Michael Jordan playing. Well, Michael Jordan's ultra aggressive, and where you might say the guy fouled him, and you didn't call it, but the reason you didn't call it because he's gonna go to the basket and dunk it.
Right.
That's why we didn't call it 10 feet from the goal. I could have called a foul 5 seconds ago.
Yeah.
And those are the good referees. The bad referees are the ones who just sometimes they swallow the whistle. Sometimes they are whatever coach is. Well, this is Duke. So if the Duke is playing, you got to realize Coach K wouldn't let his players. Man, come on, that's a bunch of crap.
Right.
Call the game the way it's supposed to be called. And if you do get a referee where that his calling is fishy, you don't go out here and antagonize it. You just keep playing.
Right. Yeah.
That's all you can do. Just keep playing.
Yep.
Don't get frustrated. Don't cuss him out. Don't get up here and show him up because he's gonna kick you out the game.
Right.
Keep playing.
Yeah,
Petty got frustrated against Arkansas the other night.
Yeah, and I that was definitely a factor in that game. Tim Donaghy, by the way, is the guy's name, the referee that was working with the cheating or whatever.
Refer Cook.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, and look, I saw the same thing Petty saw. I realized Alabama was definitely getting jobbed by the officials, but you still got to make your shots. I mean, like
make the play.
You just got to make your plays, and there's going to be a certain amount of that. When I was broadcasting women's basketball, you couldn't beat Pat Summitt, and I think she's one of the greatest coaches in women's basketball history, maybe the greatest. But there was also the officiating in those games. I remember telling Wendell Hudson, who was the head coach, I said, you got to beat Tennessee. It's tough to do that. Then you got to beat the officials. That's really tough to do that.
Oh yeah. Well, in college basketball back in the day, if you went to Indiana and played against Indiana and Bobby Knight, you knew the officials were going to be a factor.
Right.
The minute Bobby Knight got up and started snorting, spitting, and going into spasms, that referee is done. You're done.
Right.
Because I remember a game they played years back. Auburn played Indiana in the tournament. Auburn was destroying Indiana. And Bobby Knight went up, started going crazy, cussed the officials out, got a tech, And from then on, the ball game was over. They destroyed Auburn.
Right. Yeah. Not many Indianas, not many Bobby Knights out there anymore, huh?
No, not many. There's some, but not many. I think a basketball coach's feel, for some reason, they have to be confrontational instead of letting the game be played and don't worry about the game. Now, there's a time for everything.
Right.
But far too many times, basketball coaches are confrontational.
Yeah. Well, what do you think about Nate Oates? I mean, do you think he's the real deal?
I do think he's the real deal. I disagree with his philosophy. Again, I'm just, I spent 5 years in the 6th grade, but even I know this. Again, if you shoot closer to the basket from further to the basket, your percentage is going to be higher than lower. So if I got an 8-foot shot and I can't take it, I don't agree with that. That makes no sense to me. I understand analytics and all that other junk, to which me is junk. But if I got an 8-foot shot, I'm gonna pitch the ball back to somebody behind 27 feet. That makes no sense to me.
Right.
Makes no sense at all. But I do believe he is the real deal because I liked Avery Johnson, but let's face it, Avery could not recruit. He got Sexton. Sexton became a star on the AAU circuit. Nobody knew about Sexton. By the time everybody knew about it, he had been tied into Alabama and he came to Alabama. But other than that, who did he recruit?
Well, I mean,
he recruited Petty.
Yeah.
He recruited Reese. I understand it, but they never showed the potential that they're showing now. Because it's all about development.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and look, I think part of this too is obviously Oates is someone who brings in, like a lot of energy and, and this, this hustle mentality. But also, I mean, the fact that in this year that you have 7 seniors, that helps you out a lot too. They've got all these guys that have been there, done that. Instead of trying to guys figuring it out in game.
Yeah. This class would be just like the 2008 Alabama football team that lost to Florida, and they lost a lot of good players that went and turned pro and senior. Mm-hmm. But those guys set the pace for the 2009 team that won the national championship and set the basis for the dynasty we see today. Yeah. And hopefully that's what we can have here.
Yeah. Mike Johnson's one of my buddies. He was on that team in 08 and 09. He said the biggest mistake they made was that they thought that their goal was to get to the SEC title game. And
not pass.
Yeah, right. And that because up until that point, Nick Saban can tell him everything that he wants to tell him, but it's that experience. And then that's kind of what worries me about this team too. It's that, it's not like they have tournament experience. They don't really make the tournament a lot, 08 set us up for what we got now because the mentality changed, and Mike was part of that. He was the captain on the 09 team, and it was like, look, we're not going to play Tim Tebow in the championship game. We're going to beat Tim Tebow in the championship game. Then we're going to go win the national championship, and that's what those guys did, and it's something that we see a lot now with Alabama, which has been incredible, right? But it's that mentality that
Yes, well, as a man thinking, so is he.
Right.
If your thinking is stinking, well, guess what? You're gonna stink to join up, because nothing prepares you for winning like winning.
Yeah.
Once you know how to win, once you get in these tight situations, once you've been battle tested, now we can sit here and say, you know what? I've seen all this before. It's just a momentary lull. You pull the guys together and let's go out here and win the game.
No doubt. Well, anything else before we bid you farewell and move on?
Well, just let you guys know you guys doing a great job. I'm a silent contributor. I watch you guys all the time. Normally I don't watch you live. I normally watch you after the show is ended because I'm normally doing something else. But you guys do a great job. You do a great job with Alabama football and keeping the fans informed. And all I can say is to you guys, Roll Tide and keep doing what you're doing.
Hey, thank you. And Roll Tide. Thanks for calling in.
And I will call back again. Appreciate it.
Anytime. Great to talk to you today up in Huntsville. Yeah, I'll tell you, man. And as the phone lines are open right now, if you guys want to jump in at 205-850-0883, you guys make this. We could come on here and talk, but when you call in or you're in the comment section chirping away, as long as it's in good spirits, I love a healthy debate. I really do. And when I came over and joined Kyle and Andrew Bone and Tony Tsoukalos and the gang, Kyle said, hey, you're going to love the interaction that you're going to get on our YouTube channel. And it's been great, and it's been in a lot in Alabama, but a lot around the country. And William, I got to give you credit too, man. I was thinking this as well, that Lewis was definitely a big recruit that Coach Avery Johnson had. But whatever's happened, right, as far as this basketball program is concerned and wherever it's going to be in the future, it's fun this time of year to have something to look forward to. That we're sitting here talking about basketball. It is something that doesn't happen a lot. Unless you're buddies with Chris Stewart or Brian Passink, they're always talking basketball on the Alabama radio network. But, they just love the sport. Like, this is the first time in a long time, so I guess since really the team that got to the Elite Eight that we've all been this excited about. About where this basketball program is headed. So they won the SEC and everybody's fired up about that. You guys want to jump in on the conversation? I'm going to go as long as you're calling in and talking tonight at 205-850-0883. It feels like there's not a lot going on, but because of this basketball team winning the SEC, there really is, some stuff to get into today. On top of that, Alabama landed one of the best quarterback recruits in the country. And, that was, I don't want to say it was a surprise, but it was definitely one that I don't think that it was locked up. But if Tennessee doesn't fire Jeremy Pruitt, I think Ty Simpson might have gone to Tennessee. I saw him, and I was at the same tailgate as him and his dad when Alabama and Tennessee played. And, and the feeling that people had was that, this guy's going to be, he'll be a Vol. He's from Tennessee and, and be an easy fit for him. He'd be, blue chipper, go right into being the starting quarterback probably pretty soon. And they fire Pruitt, and then Tennessee's had this mass exodus where they've lost 25 recruits, or 25 players that have transferred, which is, that's like a whole recruiting class. You're talking about 25 guys that aren't going to be there. I'm just curious to what Tennessee's future is, at least in the near future. But Alabama has a lot to offer right now. And I guess when I'm looking at it, I'm saying, okay, it came down to, in my thoughts, from what I heard, Alabama and Clemson. And Andrew Bone was telling us off the air, he's like, I think he's coming. I think he's coming to Alabama. Bone says that so much, though, you're like, okay, they all can't come to Bama. But it seems like they all are coming to Bama right now. He said, I think he's coming. He just had a feeling. And, I was hearing Clemson maybe, that he was going to go there, and Dabo and company were putting a lot of pressure. Hey, look, let's get him. But you know what? He came to Bama. All right, let's go back to the phone lines again as we talk Alabama on a Sunday night. Who's this and where are you calling from?
What's going on, Mick? It's Jared from Buffalo.
Hey, what's up, dude? Thanks for calling in, man. How you been?
I've been all right, man. Just enjoyed the Alabama SEC championship clincher. Ty Simpson committing to the University of Alabama, man. Just been enjoying Alabama sports in general.
It's at this time of year, we're not really supposed to have a lot to talk about. I mean, we're like trying to build up to spring practice. And then once we get to spring practice, I mean, we're going to have a ton to talk about. Who's going to be the quarterback? What do the receivers look like? How good's this defense going to be? What's, how about 8A, and someone asked Jersey Dolphins, I think we are going to do a whatever selection show. So you guys can hang out with us. I know Kyle and I have kind of talked about that off the air. Nothing official, but I know that we're talking about it right now. But Jarek, man, I'm excited though, just to have this basketball team ready to make the tournament and do something in the tournament.
Yeah, man, I'm very happy for Nate Oats, man. I mean, like I said, I always mention this every time I get the chance I get, but I met Nate Oats in Buffalo. I was able to see the work that he was able to do with some of the young guys that ended up as six-year guys. And, he turned the UB program into having some of the greatest seasons in UB history, including his last season when he went 31-3 and almost got the team to the Sweet 16 tournament. So I'm very happy for Nate Oats and the job that he was able to do, especially some of the young, especially some of the older guys that are paving the way for the new generation. Because looking at the last two recruiting classes, it's really good recruiting classes, and they're getting 5-star talent like Primo, and I forgot the other 5-star guy that committed to the University of Alabama. But they're getting that talent. A lot of these guys are now interested in coming to your. Oh yes. A lot of these guys are now interested in coming to your program. While even with Avery Johnson, like Avery Johnson is an NBA, he's an NBA coach. NBA great, but did not really draw that much attention besides maybe the first year when he got Colin Sexton, but just didn't really draw that much attention. When Nate Oats officially got there, he drew the attention because kids knew his track record. They knew exactly what he was all about. And, this can definitely turn that win against Mississippi State. It could definitely turn the corner of being an SEC power, because at the end of the day, that's the goal, right? Even though our goal is to go to the win the SEC tournament, go to the NCAA tournament, win a national title. The goal at the end of the day is to be from 10 years from now to being in the national power in basketball. And Kentucky's down right now, Auburn's down right now. Tennessee is normally the team that we see as that SEC power, Florida. But to see what Bama basketball has done in less than 3 years, it's absolutely remarkable. And I'm just proud of I'm really proud of the older guys that really paved the way. Guys like Petty, guys like Ellis, a lot of those guys paved the way for this team.
I'm wondering if football helps too, because if Nick Saban is okay with players like Kool-Aid, playing both sports. And what if these guys, maybe they're not the star of the basketball team, but what if they're like a contributor? What if there's that gives you more depth on the team? That gives you that 7th guy or that 8th guy. This is something that Rick Barnes has done at Tennessee, where he'll take a guy who's going to do both. And find a way to make it work with football. Football is always going to be king at Alabama, but you know what? If you're a superstar athlete and you can do both, why not do both? We saw Dave Winfield. You remember him? He played basketball, baseball, and football, and was good at all of them. Great at all of them. If you get a guy like that, why not have him?
Yeah, and Keith Holcomb. Keith Holcomb was a guy that played. He was a dual sport athlete. And they got, and they're besides, I forgot what his name is, but besides Kool-Aid, they got the safety from Tallahassee that also he came here because basketball, football, he wants to be a dual sport. So yeah, I agree with you. Nick Saban definitely has he definitely has an impact into getting these kids, man. But yeah, it's just it's Nate Oats and Nick Saban, they're both having that effect where kids from literally all over the country are now interested in your program. Like when these kids from IMG Academy and and Christian Oaks and Mount Hill, when these kids are now interested in going into your program because they're seeing the work that your team is doing, that is a great sign going in. Now, of course, I don't know if they're doing the SEC tournament this year. I don't know if they're doing that because of COVID, but besides that and the NCAA tournament, it's all about now for Alabama. If they're, how far can they push now for that? I mean, you got the regular season, but how far can you go in these tournaments? Because, even though that this is a great accomplishment, it's a little bit different from college football. You're in that tourney. You can lose to a 16 seed. You can lose to anybody in that tournament. It's March. It's called March Madness for a reason. So they got to be. So they definitely got to be in their Q's and P's. They definitely got to continue to work extremely hard. Continue to be a very, very good defensive team. They got to get better at shooting the three outside of the perimeter. But one of the things that's really going to carry this team to potentially go far, and it happened with Virginia. Virginia had no stars, and they ended up winning a national championship. Was because of the leadership. They never really kind of folded, right? We've seen that Virginia team been down by like 10, 15 points, and they were able to come back. They never folded at all. They always had leaders. And one of the things that this Bama basketball team has is that they have leaders. They have leaders all across the board. And that's the one thing that obviously I think is going to carry this team for going far.
Yeah. And look, if they make a run, it's exactly going to be that. It's going to be, hey, look, 7 seniors, they've got leadership. They proved it last night. Those are the games sometimes that you got to win in the tournament. And this is my exact point right here. And I'm going to get into and I love the comment section, by the way. But Jarek, you kind of hit something that I'm right on with, the fact that you can win a national championship with no stars like Virginia did. Alabama's got some good players. Look, Herb Jones is a good player. Petty's a good player. Are they superstars? No. Virginia won a national championship, but they also lost in the first round, so it's like, I'm just so concerned about the experience that you have going into the tournament. Also, when let's just take, I'm going to go with something else. I know Cubs baseball, right? Cubs won a World Series in 2016, right? They're still living on that World Series. It's probably time to move over and forget about it. But, as much as I love them, they're still stuck on 2016, right? Time to move on. But what happened was they hadn't had a lot of success in the playoffs. And 2015, they play well. And then all of a sudden they get in the playoffs and they win some games. They knock the Cardinals out before getting swept by the Mets. And I remember Theo Epstein saying, hey, every bit of experience that they get in the playoffs is going to help them down the road because it's just different, right? So the next year they won the World Series, right? And I wonder if the same thing applies to this basketball team because they don't have playoff experience because they haven't been to the tournament, right? So it's not like that Virginia team that went in there, and even though they lost to a 16, which was the most devastating loss in the history of the NCAA tournament, it was still the experience that they needed to get them back into the tournament the next year motivated, and they won the national championship, which really is an incredible swing when you think about it, to go from that low to that high, right? And both of them will never forget. It's just that's the story that you tell your team. Hey, man, you lose a big game, you can always come back and maybe you'll get a chance and you'll win next time. So my question is, and I guess just my concern, and I'd love to hear what you're thinking, but they don't have the option of having an experience of being in the NCAA tournament, right? They could take maybe an NIT. I don't think that counts the same. They've got this year's team and whatever happens in Nashville with the SEC tournament, and they're playing with a bullseye on their back. They're the SEC champs right now. Is that enough to get them into the tournament and be ready, or is it just a different animal?
I think it's enough. I definitely think it's enough. I will say though, once you get inside the tournament, it is a different animal because it's the closest thing to what NBA playoff basketball is. It's so much more physical. The pace is so much faster. Referees will definitely not really call as many things compared to how it is in the regular season. The referees will let the players play, so it gets extremely physical. And I think you hit something in the head with that experience. And one of the things that even though this basketball team is extremely experienced with those 7 guys, when it comes to tournament time, it's a different beast, it's a different animal, and you're most likely going to be going against teams that do have tournament experience, no matter if they're 15th seeds or 13th or no matter what seed they are. most likely the team probably already been to the tournament before and they had that experience. Or you're going against guys with just an extreme amount of talent. So, but one of the things that I think that this Bama basketball team does have, though, I think they do have all the traits. They got the physicality. They do have the perimeter shooting. They do have the experience with leadership. And I think that they got young guys that are hungry. I think they got young guys that have waited for this opportunity for them to shine. I think guys like Ellis, guys like Primo, right? These younger guys, I think, are ready for this opportunity. I think that this Bama basketball team is ready to go. I definitely think that the lumps that they took can definitely help them come tournament time. I think that loss against Arkansas, even though it was a bad loss, I think that might have been a good loss at the same time, because maybe it might have humbled this basketball team to be better, to kind of realize that, listen, we know that we're better than Arkansas, but we folded. We did not play our best basketball game there, and we need to play better, because come tournament time, it doesn't matter. If we think we're better than that team, it's a one and done situation. It's a one and done situation if we can't show up and play.
Yeah. Yep. That's exactly it, man. I agree with that. And, and I guess what I'm going to find out is who is the guy on this team. Is it Herb? Is it Petty? Because they're going to get into a situation in that tournament, and it may be that very first game. Sometimes the hardest game you have is the first game. You look at some of the teams that even that Virginia team that won the national championship, they had a scuffle the next year in the first round. There's a game in the tournament, and a lot of times it's the first game where you're dealing with nerves. You're playing against a team that doesn't feel like, if you're as low of a seed as Alabama is going to be, right? Where they might not have a lot to lose, and somebody's going to have to be the one that steps up and makes a big shot. Could be early in the game, could be middle of the game, and it could be late in the game. To kind of put you over the top. And who knows, maybe all of these losses that they've had that have been close to Oklahoma and Arkansas and Missouri, and Western Kentucky and all those teams, maybe it's going to pay off, because maybe they have gotten to the point now where they have won the SEC. You don't have to worry about that anymore. The mentality, maybe if they could change it, and maybe they flip it and they say, hey, we're the team that's got something to prove. That might help them, but somebody's going to have to be that player that, when things aren't going well, takes the ball, makes a shot in the tournament. That's just how those things are won.
Yeah, I will say the one thing that really will help Alabama, it is Nate Oats. When Nate Oats, his first tournament when he had UB, I think it was either against West Virginia or it was against Miami. They ended up losing both those games when they ended up going to the tournament their first couple of years. But one of the things that Nate Oats said was that he felt like his team, it was their first tourney going there, and they were extremely tense. They didn't really play the way that they play, which is fast paced, shoot outside in the perimeter, shoot outside the perimeter, and play strong in the interior. They did not really play up to their standard. They were just extremely tense. I'm not going to say that they were scared, but just extremely tense, because they've never been in that moment where it was a full crowd full of 30, 40,000 people. And not to mention that you have to travel to different locations. You have to travel to different locations. You're not playing at home. You're not playing on the road. You have to keep traveling to these different locations and stay in a hotel where there's there's 10, 15, 20 teams staying in the same hotel as you. So I definitely believe that Nate Oats, with the experience that he has, he's not going to let these players play tense. He's got to let these players get loose. That's the goal of what I think Nate Oats has to do. He's got to let these guys stay loose, cannot tense up. And again, I think you hit it right on the nail. The first game, I think, is the hardest game, because a lot of the teams that you're playing is, we get confused about the seeds. These are all good teams. You make the tournament, you're a good basketball team, and you have the opportunity and you have the talent to upset anybody. And sometimes when you're going against some of these you're going against some of these higher seed teams, they have experience, and most of these teams, they've been in these tournaments. So again, they have the experience to dethrone you, even though you might be a more talented team, you might be even a better team.
Right.
But you're not ready for that stage. You're not ready for that moment. So I think one thing again, Nate Oats will do is that he's going to send a message loud and clear to say, listen, we can't get tense, because if we get tense, we're most likely going to lose. You got to stay loose, play the way Alabama basketball has played, and I think they'll be fine.
Yeah, Petty, Reese, and Jones did play in the tournament. I remember, and they got killed by Villanova in the second round. And you hope that little bit of experience is going to help. And then the other part of it is that, last year no one had a tournament, right, because it got canceled.
Mm-hmm.
But the other part of this is if Alabama gets hot, and since the whole tournament's in the same gym, I mean, think about this. They get hot, man. They could roll off. Isn't the whole thing in Indianapolis, right? Would that make it all in the same place? Or maybe they have some like satellite gyms. I'm not totally sure on that, but I can tell you this.
Yeah.
Alabama could get hot
this year.
Yeah, it's going to be different this year because I think the whole tournament's in one place.
Mm-hmm.
Alabama, look, if it's in one of those, if they feel like they did against LSU in that gym in Baton Rouge, no, they could beat anybody. And that would be the kind of tournament we would love to see, or maybe what Auburn did when they got to the Final Four. They just, they were a good team. They got hot and they, they really should have made it to the championship game. They got some bad officiating at the end of that game, but it's here nor there. The bottom line is that Alabama's got a chance, and it's just going to depend on their perimeter shooting. To me, I mean, because that we could talk about the guard play, we could talk about the rebounding, but when Alabama shoots the three, they're really tough to beat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely agree with you. And again, it only takes one play. It only takes one play to get a team going and to get the momentum and to really get the momentum going. Whether if it's Herb Jones, how he's playing on the defensive side of the ball with his effort, whether it's Petty with his leadership, again, whether if it's the young guys coming off the bench, it really only takes one play to either help your team and to get that momentum or even to destroy your team.
Right.
Sometimes that can really backfire you on as well. And again, I don't know. Again, I don't know where the location is. Again, maybe it's going to be in Indianapolis, and that's going to be the entire thing where it's going to be this small bubble. But yeah, if Alabama gets it rolling, they're good enough to go to at least an Elite Eight or even further beyond that. They got the talent, they got the leadership, they got everything they need. I think the only thing they really need now is, even with Petty and Jones, they need just one play to really get it going to kind of signify that, hey, say, listen, the tournament's no different than playing a regular season game. I mean, yes, this is a one and done game, but this is basketball at the end of the day, and we know that we can beat anybody on the court.
What I would love to see is those guys get hot and get that swagger that they have sometimes. I think if this team goes in with some swagger and feels confident, that they're going to be tough. They could be tough. And the other part of it too is I hope that, and I guess this is just my Alabama fandom and coming out, but I would love it for the bracket to be one that kind of benefits them. Because I think sometimes you're like, you look at the bracket and you're like, okay, man, like we did this and this is what we get, like you're playing like you got the hardest bracket that they could possibly come up with, and I'm not thinking that Alabama is going to be able to go through, the likes of, Michigan and other teams like that, Ohio State, I don't know. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, no.
They wouldn't probably see them for a while. But there's always those teams where you look at the bracket and you're like, okay, this is the kind of bracket we need. And then there's those times where you look and you're like, okay, yeah, this bracket, it's not going to work too good for us.
No, you want to at least get a more tougher opponent, like at least maybe in the second round,
right?
The Sweet 16, at least one of those teams. You don't want to automatically go against like a Coastal Carolina, like when Michigan State played Coastal Carolina back in 2015, and everyone thought that Michigan State was going to. No, I'm sorry, it was Middle Tennessee, and everyone thought Michigan State was going to absolutely railroad them. And like I remember that year, everyone had Michigan State as not a national champion, but at least they were going to get in the game and play Duke. They got absolutely destroyed by Middle Tennessee, and so yeah, hopefully Alabama doesn't have one of those games. A number 2 seed, it's the number 2 seed is weird because you either get an easy opponent or the opponent is a killer. It's a team that not only can beat you, they can destroy you.
Yeah.
A number 1 seed, typically, it's rare for a number 1 seed to kind of get knocked off, but yeah, number 2 seeds, they occasionally can get knocked off. And, again, hopefully Bama doesn't get it in that situation again. I'm banking on the team with the leadership and with Nate Oats and the experience that they have that they can get it. But yeah, I agree. That's the number 2 seed. It's a scary position to kind of be in.
There's always that 2-15 upset, and sometimes there's years there's a lot more than just one. Well, Jerick, anything else before we move on tonight? Anything else you want to get into?
Yeah, Ty Simpson, man, committing to the University of Alabama, man, that is a huge commitment for the University of Alabama. Obviously, I think between the quarterback battle between Bryce Young and Paul Tyson, I think the loser is going to transfer out, in my opinion, and I think that just opens up a door for someone to step in. Ty Simpson's a guy, again, very, very talented quarterback. In my opinion, will he stick with this commitment? I'm not too sure. We got a long way to go until we get to that early signing period, or even if he decides to sign in February. But I'm very excited to see what this young man does during his senior season. I'll definitely keep an eye on him. And yeah, if he does stick with this, I'm very excited to have him here.
Yeah, it's exciting. I didn't even think about that, but you're right. I mean, the way that the world works now is that when you lose the quarterback battle, you just pack up and leave. Although Alabama's been lucky because that hasn't always been the case. I mean, I know that Jalen Hurts left, but you know what? He did stick around that 1 year as backup. I mean, like, you couldn't blame him. He could have left the year before that when he lost the job, or the next year, right? But he hung and stuck through, right? This is a good insurance plan. And who knows? I mean, this guy comes from a lineage of football. I mean, his dad's a great football coach, and I mean, he kind of has that Tua ability, as Bone says, to avoid being, the rush and find the guys downfield, big target, and just he comes in highly touted, man. Some of, he's 4 or 5 star material.
Yeah, man. And Ty Simpson, one of the things I liked about just looking at his tape is that this dude, just like Bryce Young, just like Tua, he has a lot of zip in his touches, man. He has a lot of power behind his throw. I think he can definitely get a lot better when it comes to just stepping up and in the pocket. But again, when you're playing at a high school level, unless you're playing at the level of a modern day or IMG Academy, where you're constantly going against some of those top teams, sometimes you don't really get to learn that as much. I know, again, he's going to these quarterback camps and Elite 11s, so I know that they're going to teach him that, and I know that they're going to definitely polish his tools a little bit there, and he'll probably be, coming into Alabama just like Bryce, just like Tua, a little bit more advanced compared to other 5-star and 4-star quarterbacks coming in. But yeah, Ty Simpson, a lot of talent, mobility, I don't understand why they even list him as a pro style. He looks more like a dual style. I know the kid can definitely run, got that mobility, especially very elusive inside the pocket. So yeah, Ty Simpson, very, very, very extremely talented. I'm excited to have him there.
Yeah, it's going to be great. I mean, it's just more momentum to help build that recruiting class too. Because you start to put those kind of guys together, and then they help you recruit the other elite guys. So, the future of Alabama is just, under this Nick Saban program, I hate to say it, but it just keeps getting better and better. I don't even know how that's even possible, but give this guy a lot of credit. Nick Saban's just kind of, the batteries are charged and he's moving forward.
Yeah, and think about this, Mick. Like 3 years ago, we talked about the holes of, as far as depth, right? Even though Alabama was extremely talented, right? They had guys go to the NFL, like 10, 12 guys go to the NFL, like every single year. And we questioned about the inside linebacking and those other linebacking positions. We questioned the quarterback position. We questioned some of the, the cornerback positions about who was going to fill in that void.
Right.
And now you're looking at least at this particular roster, because of the last 2 or 3 recruiting classes, there's no hole. There's no weakness. I think the closest thing you could say to having weakness is our offensive line, even though looking at this, last year's recruiting class was, again, possibly the greatest O-line recruiting class on paper. So that's that. So it's not the O-line. We all know the offensive line is going to be good. It's not going to be bad. Will they be all-time great? Probably not. But will they be good? I think they will be. So, this Alabama just continues to just be in a position where, they're not going to be in that position like they were 3-4 years ago, where they had that one bad recruiting class and it really kind of messed everything up there. They had, transfer portals. were included. Nick Saban was ready for it. Nick Saban and his coaching staff is prepared when it comes to just providing death upon death upon death. So yeah, I'm very excited to see where Alabama goes with this 2022 recruiting class specifically, because again, I don't know where you can target. Honestly, I don't know honestly where you can target where we need that specific position.
Yeah, well, I mean, they'll go and get it. You know, when they have the position in need, I mean, you're going to find out they needed linebackers a couple years ago. You watch who has the best linebackers in the country coming into this season.
Mm-hmm.
Just watch. You know, and I'm not just talking about, you know, they say maybe Toe is going to transfer in. I mean, he just add to what they already got and the true freshmen that they got. And man, they better get Alabama early next year, because I think when these young guys figure it out on offense, I think that it's going to be a really fun team to watch. And the 8A game kind of leads us into this spring practice, going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, they got 14 freshmen that are going to be playing this game. I think that's the most that I think Alabama has ever had.
Yeah.
So that's just adding on to that. To your point, you better get them early, because I'm telling you, if they figure it out, I don't know if anyone can beat them.
Yeah, and if that defense is as good as I think they're going to be, the defense is probably going to have to play its part early, and then all of a sudden it's going to be like a whirlwind when that offense starts to get going and that offensive line starts to figure it out, because there's going to be the talent's there, you know, just no doubt about it. But well, Jarek, awesome call, man.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much for having me on the show, man. I'll definitely call back when you have the opportunity.
Always welcome on here. You're the best. Thank you. Roll Tide.
All right. Yep, Roll Tide.
That's Jarek right there. He's just awesome, man. All you guys are. Appreciate you so much on a Sunday night for hanging out. Whether you're hitting us in the comment section or you call in like Jarek and you know, and talk football, you talk basketball. All you guys, really appreciate it. Thumbs up as you hang out tonight. Subscribe to our channel, the Bama Insider YouTube channel, and make sure that you check out the website, BamaInsider.com. That's where Kyle Henderson, Andrew Bone, Tony Tsoukalas are going to keep you updated on everything going on. Bama recruiting, Bama football, Bama basketball, the latest news, even baseball and softball as they try to make it through their seasons as well. I'm Mick Gillispie. Thanks for watching, guys. It's been a lot of fun talking to you tonight. Don't forget, tomorrow, 6 o'clock. It'll be 6 o'clock Central Time, because I know that you are spread out throughout the country. It'll be Monday Night Quarterback, Tony Tsoukalas, Trey Yannity, and myself. That'll lead you into the week. And just come right back here, Bama Insider. All right, guys, have a great night. Roll Tide, everybody.